Hey guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications in order to receive updates on all my latest videos. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome back to The Wandering Wind. Today, I want to continue my Introduction to PCs series with an introduction to motherboards. Now, I showed you a motherboard the other day, so if you want to see what one looks like, either Google motherboard or go back to my other video on getting a Ryzen motherboard. But I want to talk today about what a motherboard is. Now, frankly, you can pretty much equate every piece of a computer to a part of the human body. So, for example, the CPU or the processor is the brain of the computer. So for the purposes of this video, let's look at the motherboard as either the circulatory or nervous system of the body, the thing which connects everything else together. So a motherboard by itself is useless, but when powered by a power supply and then connected to other components like a CPU, RAM, and a graphics card, it becomes a powerhouse in that you can actually have a working computer. So motherboards have a lot of different kinds of technology. Some of them have built-in Wi-Fi capabilities. Some have various connectors to use for monitors. Most do have one thing in common. That is the USB port, or Universal Serial Bus port. Now, the USB port is a relatively, within like the last 20 years, new technology. So about mid-1990s, late 1980s, USB ports started becoming a real alternative to the previous parallel port, which was it looks kind of like your old school VGA monitor port, but a lot wider. So you had, I think, like 32 pins, and it usually connected to something like either an external CD drive or an external printer or something along those lines. Parallel ports are very rare these days, so you don't see them very often on many modern devices. But USB or Universal Serial Bus technology has really gotten advanced to the point to where you can have 1 terabyte of memory on a single USB stick, a single flash drive. Now, what's the difference between flash memory and regular hard drive memory? Well, flash memory is basically stored on a single chip on a board with an interface like a USB. So like this. The difference between that and a hard drive, or the difference between a mechanical drive and a solid state drive, is with a hard drive you have multiple spinning disks inside of an enclosure, and you have what's called a stylus that moves back and forth over the surface of the disk and reads the information there. That has been the standard in computers ever since the late, I want to say 1960s, when technology first started really looking towards developing working storage for memory and stuff. So, but yeah, back to motherboards. You also have other connectivity, like you have PCIe slots or PCI slots, which are expansion slots that you can use to put in stuff like graphics cards or extra memory, extra functionality like newer USB ports. You can actually get expansion cards. Say you have a PC from like 2012, 2013 that has a smaller, short PCIe slot. You can get an expansion card from a place like eBay that allows you to use either USB 3.0 or USB-C on your older computer. So those ports, those slots, I should probably be pointing them out as I'm doing this. Give me a second. Okay, so let's just do this. I'm going to point this down at the box, and I'm going to demonstrate what the different pieces are. So, for the purpose of what we were just talking about, these here are PCI slots. So, the longer ones are usually used for things like graphics cards and other high-powered expansion cards. And then these PCIe X1 slots, or the shorter ones, are usually used for expansion cards for like Wi-Fi adapters or extra memory, like another storage drive inside of your PCIe slot and stuff like that. Over here we have the let's see, what is this? This is an AM4 socket, so this will work only with Ryzen CPUs. But this is a CPU socket. It's where the CPU sits, and you just lift this, put the CPU in, and then you put it back down to lock it in place, and that connects the pins on the CPU to the board and allows you to actually start using the CPU with the board. Over here we have the RAM slots. Now you'll notice that there are 2 black and 2 red. That's not a coincidence, that's by design. So if you've got say you've got a kit of 8 gigabytes of RAM and you put 1 slot here and 1 slot here, well, that won't work so well, because unless you have 1 slot here and 1 slot here, they're not working together. They're working separately instead of in parallel, which is what you want. So this is slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, and slot 4. They stagger them so that way you can pair two sticks of memory together to make them more efficient by having them work in parallel. So if I had, like, say, 16 gigs of memory and all of them were 4 gigs each, I could just put 1 in each of these 4 slots and I'd have much more efficient ability. And what RAM is actually random access memory. That's the memory that programs that are running on your computer use when they're open. Now, when they're closed, they're using your hard drive in order to store their information. But when they open, they need to use this in order to keep processes running, which is why sometimes your computer slows down when your RAM ends up using too much of its capacity, because once you start using too much of it, your computer has to start prioritizing what to keep running and what to slow down in order to not crash. Over here, we have the, let's see, we have the ATX 12 volt, and then the ATX, I think this is a 32 volt power connectors. Now, the reason why there are 2 of them on here is because for a lot of boards, you need a lot of power. You'll also notice on some of your more advanced power supplies, they also have other 4-port or 4 connector pins. Those are designed for graphics cards, which go in here. Those allow your graphics card to pull the necessary power they need in order to perform the tasks that you want them to, like running Apex Legends or something similar. Now, moving on to graphics cards themselves, they do exactly what you'd think they'd do. They process the graphics in real time in games or in other programs like video editors. So say you wanted to play the latest game. Well, if you had a graphics card from like 7 or 8 years ago, that might not work as well as say something from like 2 years ago. And so you wouldn't get the same performance, but at the same time you'd still get a good amount of just raw power. Now around the back, I'll show you this first though. Right here is what is called an M.2 Nvme slot. These are for the latest in solid state storage. So say you don't want to have to spend a whole lot on a boot drive by paying for an SSD. I have found very good options for Nvme SSD drives on eBay. You can get one of them and then you can just slot it in here. It's got a screw provided so you can screw it down. And then you've got a built-in hard drive that you never had to worry about connecting or disconnecting. And that's really useful. Now let's go to the back. Let's look at the ports on the back. So these are your audio connectors. You've got input, output. These three are usually for if you've got a home theater system. They go to your various speakers that help to create the surround sound. And then this down here is a SPDIF connector. It's it's an optical port for audio. I never thought audio could be carried by light, but I guess it can. Next to that, you have the Ethernet port. Usually these are at least 100 megs and 100 megs, but sometimes they're gigabit Ethernet. It depends on the brand of motherboard you get. Underneath here, we have USB 3.0 ports. Here are the latest 3.1 USB ports. This is actually a, let's see, let me get the I/O shield out first. Let me show you what it says. It is, oh yeah, this right here is a backup port. Like you hook up an external USB drive and it, I guess, has BIOS options or whatever to automatically back up all your stuff on your main drive onto a USB. These are your two display ports. You've got DVI and you've got HDMI down below. This is actually an older connector. This is a PS2 port. No, not PlayStation 2, but I forget what it stands for, but this is a combo mouse and keyboard port. These used to be very popular because with these kinds of ports, you actually have very low latency. And then down here, you have two more USB 3.0 ports. So the higher you go on the number of version for USB, usually the faster the transfer rate is. So 3.0 is good, but 3.1 is great. Also with 3.1, you got high power, high-powered charging. So if you've got like a latest smartphone or whatever, and you've got the USB charging cable that came with it, you can plug it into that. You get pretty fast charging. Then of course on the flip side, you've got all these other connectors. You've got, let's see, as far as I can tell, you've got, yep. Okay, let me just go through all of these in order. Okay, you've got the I/O and you got your front ports for like your power button, your power LED, your reset button, stuff like that. This is a USB 3.0 adapter. This here is for your system fan. You've also over here, here you've got your CPU fan connector. That's really useful. You've also got an extra CPU fan connector just in case you end up having those kinds of coolers. Yeah, next to the system thing, you got 2 more USB ports. Those aren't for USB 3.0, but for the slower 2.0 or 1.0. I'm not sure what this connector is, but it says TPM. It's probably something proprietary. You got another LED connector, another LED connector beyond that, and then your front audio. So that's pretty much the whole gist of what you can find on a usual motherboard. Now, obviously every motherboard is created differently, so you'll find various options that may or may not have been included in this board. But overall, I think, oh, I forgot one thing. If you'll see these right here, these are SATA ports. They're usually used for things, well, those right there. They're usually used for things like hard drives and disk drives like Blu-ray and DVD and stuff like that. So they're mainly for your extra drives. But that's the majority of what you can find on a standard motherboard. I hope you guys enjoyed this little educational video. I know it's long, but if you sat through it all, you might have learned something you didn't before. I appreciate you taking your time to watch this video. I hope you have a wonderful day. And until I see you again, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thanks for watching, and I love you very much. Hey guys, thank you for watching, and I hope you subscribe. If you do, make sure to turn on your notifications so that you can see all my future videos. And make sure to follow me on Instagram at TheWanderingWind71. I've got a lot of great pictures there. Also, don't forget to follow me on on Twitter at WanderingWind71 for all my latest tweets, and also over on Facebook at the Wandering Wind channel page. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys enjoy.